Right, we're on. Welcome back to STS, back in the saddle after one of the great weeks at Magic Round last week. Apologies for the no pod last week. Just really wanted to get amongst the festivities at Magic Round, soak it all up. Back this week though, feeling fresh despite a huge shift on Sunday night, celebrating that famous win. How good was that? More on that shortly though. Gotta say, Magic Round shit is sheer spectacle. If you haven't been already, then you gotta book your tickets for next year. I'll give you a full run through of my itinerary and how the trip went shortly. But man, that was one of the greats. Shout out to the TAB as well. Speaking of one of the greats, of course, headline sponsor for your Surly Talk Sports podcast. If you're not already a TAB customer, make sure you sign yourself up, download the app, or head along to their website, www.tab.co.nz. It's the home of sporting racing, punting in New Zealand. The new app been going great guns, plenty of options, whatever floats your boat, you'll find it on the TAB app. As always, gamble responsibly, but get around them. Grateful indeed. Plenty going on in the world of sport over the last 2 weeks. I'll do my best to cover off everything that has been happening. Fair to say though, large majority is going to be on Magic Round and the Warriors. We'll cover off your Super Rugby, your weekly wrap as well, and then a huge Q&A. The questions were flying in from all angles, so looking forward to tucking into that. So let's get in, rip off the band-aid. How bloody good. Magic Round, an absolute shift. You could probably hear it in my voice. Am suffering from a mild case of benderitis, but been surprised with how well the old body has bounced back. It was a big old week. Actually flew into the Gold Coast last Tuesday. Wanted to get in early, put the feet up, bit of R&R before ripping into the chaos at the Caxton. Gold Coast, that was a good little few days. Actually won some money on the Cass, the old Jupiter's Casino. Not sure what she's called now. Think it's had a bit of a rebrand, but that was one of the great omens too. Walked into the Cass, played a bit of blackjack, tried my best to do the old Tim Nacky, fair to say, struck out on that. So then turned my eyes to the Wheel of Fortune, the old spinning wheel. If you haven't seen it before, basically it's got the odds up on the screen: 1 for 1, 3 to 1, 11 to 1, 23 to 1, and 47 to 1 if you really like your chances. Waltz straight in, 23 to 1, chucked a chip on there, thought LeBron James, favourite basketball player, 23, the number of the GOATs, surely that delivers. Bang, straight away we hit a winner. Massive scenes there. Then thought, why not? Double down, chuck it all on 11 to 1 and see how we go. Told the lad spinning that although it was high odds, it was worth the cheeky little chance. Nickel Clockstad, he agreed, had a little smirk on his face, gave the wheel a spin, bang, 11 to 1, you absolute beauty. He even yelled out Chance Nickel Clockstad as he delivered the great news. I knew from that moment C&K was in for a great game and the Warriors were going to get a win and some nice little pocket money to blow on the steam there. Then on Saturday, drove up to Brisbane, went along to the captain's run at Ballymore for the Wars before getting amongst it at Caxton Street. Shot a bit of content for the Wars Instagram there, and I have to say, Warriors jerseys everywhere. Although it wasn't game day, I think we were the most well-represented team walking down the strip. I don't know if they were local Gold Coast, Brisbane fans, or whether a shit ton of people had made the trip over from across the ditch. Probably a combination of both, but that Saturday really set the stage for what was going to be a massive turnout in that Warriors fan zone on the Sunday. Then on Sunday, absolute chaos from woe to go. Head along to the Lord Alfred for the Warriors pre-game event. Hundreds of Warriors fans absolutely frothing in anticipation for the game ahead. Had a nice little jersey presentation for the old NRL roast. One of the great roosters, Mark Tukey, presented him with a Warriors heritage kit, which he signed because, of course, Roasty changed his name to the NRL Hungy and became an honorary Warriors fan for the weekend. And shit did he deliver. 1 from 1 for the great bloke. But he was a good dude. Shot plenty of content with him throughout the day. Also ripped out a with Mark Tukey and Roasty, then got amongst it with the fans. There was some great chants. If you haven't been to Magic Round before, basically at the top of Caxton Street, there's a bar called the Lord Alfred. Every year, Warriors Nation, the Warriors fans take it over before our clash. It was actually branded as the Redcliffe Dolphins fan zone. They had big banners hanging up on the outside of the establishment, but there wasn't a bloody Finns jersey in sight. She was all up the waz. Then they got a nice little deck mezzanine area outside, and that is where the true frothers are, sending down massive chants left, right and centre, really letting Caxton Street know that we were here to be heard. You could hear it almost close to Suncorp. Ooh, ah, up the wahs. That one was humming. My personal favourite, though, had to be There's Only One. Rocco Berry, of course, wasn't playing, but a really nice touch. Just shows how much of a fan favourite he was. Then following that, made my way down to the stadium, did some stuff for the Warriors there in the fan zone, in amongst the Warriors fans, met some great New Zealanders too, and celebrated a famous win. She was a great weekend. If you haven't been before, really encourage you to do so. It's pretty much an R&V for league fans. Even when your team's not playing, you head along, you get stuck in, get amongst it. Good banter flowing between the team supporters as well. It's all in good nature. Then Brizzy really turns it on. The weather's elite, accommodation, it's all pretty close to Caxton Street. Then you head out to Fortitude Valley after that, and that is a sight for sore eyes. Plenty of players in the mixer ripping in too. Truly is one of the great weekends on the rugby league calendar. On that Warriors win, let's get straight into it. Screw the other games. Let's get into the big boil over 22 points to 20 without over 1,000 caps on the field. Result of the round, absolutely, and one that not many people outside us, the diehards, saw coming. The lads were hungry. No experts gave us a chance. We came in, played a good mix of fuck it footy as well as a bit of structure, found that 2023 intensity, dragged the Panthers down a notch and got the job done. For me, that was a season-defining win, one of our great wins in our history, and I'm excited to see how we kick on from here. It would have been so easy for the boys to roll over without Toho, without SJ, without Roger, without Rocco. Like I touched on before, over 1,000 NRL caps, Kurt Capewell and co, all missing this one. Few young lads got their opportunities, and shit did they grab it with both hands. Really showed what they're made of, and what a confidence booster that is going to be for our season. She was unreal scenes. Add to that all the adversity before the game, then we get adversity straight away. Butcher the kickoff penalty, Dylan Edwards scores within 2 minutes. Would have been so easy for us to just chuck the toys in, give up, try get back to Mount Smart and pip the Finns. We lost Jacko and Marcelo early doors for HIA tests, and then we also lost Wade Egan in the 12th minute for his 6th concussion of his career, which is slightly concerning. And I was a little worried here. In previous games, we've seen how integral Wade is to our attack, but up steps Paulie Roach. He didn't fold, and so proud of the shift that he put in. For me, this was just a massive performance, 1-17 off the back of obviously a coaching masterclass from Webby, and a game that I think the club as a whole can be so proud of. Again, flexing our depth and showing that despite who we play, regardless of the occasion, the Warriors are never out of any contest. My standouts for me, Paulie Roach. How good was he? Game number 2 at NRL level. Got his boarding pass much earlier than he'd expected. Got through 68 minutes of work, made 37 tackles, and his work around the ruck on attack was elite too. Shit, does he have a nice pass on him? His service was outstanding. He can throw some bullets. And I think he's been watching a fair bit of Wade too. The way he got out, manipulated the markers, top shelf stuff, which freed up our ball players, Samaire Martin and co, to run a cutter, put people through holes, and turn on some brilliant tries. I thought Tane Tuopiki, take a bow, son, 183 run meters, a team high, 5 tackle breaks, the game-winning try, and then he iced it with the game-winning conversion too. Man, was that clutch. He was also a perfect 3 from 3 off the rubber, which proved to be massive because we all saw Dylan Edwards had a bit of a Barry Crocker. Of course, Nathan Cleary, he's normally their goal kicker. Dillbag stepping in, missed that penalty at the death, but also missed a couple other crucial kicks, which came back to hurt them. Tane, though, he was hitting them sweetly, putting that Steeden over the black dot every single time. He's an exciting young footballer who punches way above his weight, and every time you see him play, you just think he has to find his way into the 17 somehow. Only little in stature, but he's a baller energy, looks so confident too, safe under the high ball, and I think he showed his attacking prowess on the weekend. So well done to him. Samaire Martin, again, another you got to tip your hat to. What a way to lead this team around the park, and the critics have been coming thick and fast for him. I think fair to say, ever since his first performance back into the side, when he took on the Bunnies and put on a clinic there, he's been a little bit disappointing since. Wasn't sure how he was going to go in the 7 without SJ, but he stepped up and showed just how classy of a footballer he can be. 3 try assists, 2 to centres, just playing the front option on those lead runner lines. Beautiful seeds there, over 600 kicking metres. Really thought we were going to miss SJ's kicking game. Wasn't too sure how Chance would go if he had to put the ball on the boot, but T just said, every last tackle, give the ball to me and I'll put us in the right areas, and he certainly did that. 4 line break assists as well. A real masterclass from him. He looked bloody at home in the 7 jersey, so calm, so composed, tick all the boxes. So well done to Tamaire Martin. Jazz Tavanga, one half of the Ball Bash brothers, and both of them were outstanding, but for me, this was Jazz's best performance in a long time. This is the Jazz that I've talked about when I defend him week in and week out, saying he needs to be in our 17. Brought his energy, aggression, limited errors, only the one early doors, then he really tidied up his game. He was up in the opposition's face, just sets the tone for us, really lifts the lads off the Remu, and I thought he was unreal through the middle. Then his companion, Walks, talking of energy, his speed was massive for us in the 13 jersey, I thought. Allowed us to play at a bit of a faster tempo, but still have that really good ball playing option. He's got fast feet, engages defenders, he's not afraid to mix it with the big lads, put on a clinic at lock, and a key part of our attack. I thought he outplayed Isaiah Yeo, which is bloody hard to do as well. Adam Pompey scored a nice try, looked solid defensively, few nice runs, and then he put on the shot of the game, made old J. Cole chunder with one of the great rib ticklers. Haven't seen that before. Often you talk about big shots and you say that'll make you feel sick in the stomach. Well, this one literally did. Projectile vomiting, a huge shot from Wets there, and I thought he looked bloody sharp as well. Ali Leatoa, his centering partner as well, a huge display of mana from him. Fucked his ankle early doors, but knew he needed to push on through. Scored a try, looked dangerous every time he got his hands on the ball, was solid defensively too. A massive effort for a guy who could hardly walk post-game, which is a bloody shame. Was looking forward to seeing him getting some more minutes, but what a future he has. Tough as shit as well. CNK at 6, loved it. Thought he was a great ball running half. His leadership was massive for this side too. His energy was unmatched as well. An absolute weapon, and it was really interesting to see whenever there was little pauses in games, CNK, Tamaire Martin, Dylan Walker all getting together, just talking about the lay of the land and everything that was going on. So nice little step up in leadership from those 3 in particular. Could go on to name half the team. In all honesty, everyone was pretty bloody sharp. And one of the most pleasing aspects for me as well, AFB, who's been so dominant for us over the last 6 weeks. He probably had his most quiet game so far, only 62 run meters, but we still got the job done and dominated the middle. And of course, shout out to Dallin as well. Game 200, what a milestone for him. Unreal scenes at full time too, his family ripping him a hissing haka, him doing it back. That's the type of shit that the Warriors Club stands for. So that was bloody cool. Mentioned before, Webby probably put on a masterclass with his game plan. Of course, no one knows the Panthers better, arguably, than the Dalian Coach of the Year in Andrew Webster. It was good to see our attacking shape, just hitting lead runners in the red zone, bodies in motion. We won the offload count 11-6, and I thought that killed them as well, playing second phase footy. We threw multiple different looks at the Panthers, who are a bloody good side defensively, managed to catch them off guard, and it got us results too, which was really pleasing on the eye. Another massive aspect which I think helped get us across the line was the Warriors fans in the crowd. I touched on them before in the lead up to the game, but once you got to Suncorp, it truly was like a home game at Mount Smart. The atmosphere was electric, chants, the works, riding the emotions of every single play. When Edwards was lining up that kick, there were people pulling the fingers, people are behind the post pointing in what direction they thought the kick was going to go, and they were absolutely right. He sprayed sprayed it to the right. The place erupted when he missed that, and then full time, what a buzz that was. People shirtless, strangers just hugging each other, even saw a few people with tears in their eyes. I don't think I've hugged as many strangers as that in a long time. What a buzz that was, and the perfect way to round out Magic Round. Unfortunately for the lads, they flew home straight after the game. Bit of a tough slog for them. They couldn't even crack open a Simon Cannering in the Caxton to celebrate. Instead, prioritising getting home, not sacrificing another day of travel so they could rest, recover, get ready for the Finns this weekend. No doubt they were absolutely gutted to not send the night away after that shift. So I took that responsibility on my shoulders and gave it a bloody good crack for them. But a massive performance, one I'm sure they were so proud of, as well as the coaching staff and the whole organisation. It came at a crucial time too. Backs against the wall, we stood tall. How fucking good. In terms of your other big results from the weekend as well, because I do have to touch on a few other games which really caught my eye. Congrats to the Sharkies, huge win for them over the Roosters, 38 points to 30 in what was a high scoring game. I didn't expect this many points. Sharkies now back-to-back wins over genuine top four sides in the Melbourne Storm and in the Roosters. So that puts to bed that whole chat that they're just flat track bullies, and if they can make it 3 on the trot this week against the Panthers, then that will be massive for them. Tommy Hazelton putting up his hand to go against Mitch Barnett for that New South Wales Origin propping spot potentially, scoring tries for fun as well. Him and Adam, probably the best try scoring props in the comp. I thought Nico Hines put on a clinic, probably securing himself in the sky blue 7 jersey for Origin 1, and also really impressed with young Kale Iro, who continues to be a handful out in the centres. For me, him starting there with Talakai on the bench, that looks to be the perfect mix for Craig Fitzgibbon's lad. Shout out to the Knights as well, in particular David Armstrong, old Quads Week, who ran in 3 of the best meaties. A clinic of a performance from him. Really does bring up the question, when KP comes back, what happens to this kid? He's gone 4 from 4, hasn't lost a game since he's come in for Ponga, looks every bit a star of the future too. Surely the Knights can't afford to lose him, but how do you make it fit? Does KP go back to 6? A failed experiment that they've tried in the past. Nightmares for Adam O'Brien, but at the same time, a great problem to have. Shout out to the Storm as well, 48 points to 16, the biggest winning margin of the weekend, and they did it without Cam Munster for the large majority of that game. Watched that one live, hung around after the Warriors performance to get bums on seats. Fair to say, as soon as Munster did that, he looked in all sorts of pain, but Harry Grant and co really stood up. I thought Fa'alongo was good as well. Hughes named for them this week. Hopefully he can play, because that will be a massive blow to not have either of those two in a game that they are really going to want to win. In terms of your big news that's popped up in the NRL over the last 7 days, because we all know the great game doesn't sleep as well. Munster gone for State of O. Hardly panic stations for Queensland though. They've still got 3 great options in my humble opinion. The first one for me, and I think the one Billy Slater will go with, would be to just chuck Tommy Beauden in. Of course, he's played Origin before, had a really strong performance as well. Tough as shit, looks like he epitomises the Queensland spirit, so I think they will slot him into the 6 jersey with DCE at 7. If not, don't have to look far. Ezra Mam, wham bam, thank you ma'am, delivering week in and week out. He's been a bloody good footballer now for the last 18 or so months. Looks every bit like an Origin player, so he will be a genuine option too. Third option, probably the least preferable for me. They could chuck Benny Hunt in there to partner DCE, but I think they've had so much success with that Harry Grant Hunt 9-14 combination that I think Billy would be hesitant to change anything around that. So I expect Tommy Dearden to slot in for Cam Munster. 8 to 10 weeks for the kid with the groin that he initially hurt slipping out of the shower. Shit, has he come to regret that injury. Wayne Bennett, he signed with the Bunnies, and Brad Arthurs has got the sack as Parramatta coach. Tough scenes for Brad, but probably writing's been on the wall for a little while now. 11 years at the helm, he's been the longest standing Parramatta coach. Clear to say the players still loved him. They seemed a bit rattled by it, and it's pretty crazy to think he's obviously done a heck of a job internally, because their results have been pretty dog shit ever since they made that grand final 2 years ago. To still have won the locker room shows what a people person he must be. be. I think his time was up though. Credit to how classy he was in his sign-off too, just saying he was grateful for his time at the helm, and I'm sure he'll pick up another coaching gig, probably an assistant gig, not a head coach, but I don't think it'll be long before we see Brad back behind the glass pulling the strings. Wayne Bennett to the Bunnies, a massive pickup for them for next year. As soon as Arthurs got sacked, there was a lot of chatter that maybe Wayne would go there because he had said a few weeks back that the Parramatta job certainly did appeal to him. Souths have got him though, and I can't wait to see what he pulls off next year. A talented roster. He's got a bit of work to do there though, but if anyone can pull off the rebuild and fill their players with confidence, because man do they need it, then you'd have to back old Uncle Wayne. But let's get into this week's games, of course, kicking off tonight's with the Dogs taking on the Dragons. This should be an interesting one to watch. Dogs, the only side I got wrong in my tipping last week at Magic Round. They got tripped up by the Raiders and they'll be stinging off the back of that one. Dragons, the old Dargons, coming in off the back of a bye, so they will be up and about. Then Friday, your full fizz Friday, 2 games. Cowboys taking on the Tigers. Shit, the Cowboys look patchy, and old Todd Payton, speaking of coaches getting sacked, he must be starting to get a little nervous, because if results don't go their way over the next 6 or so weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have a gig next year. Manly versus Storm, that is set to be a doozy as well, of course, at Manly, at Brookvale. Jerome Hughes named, but I'm interested to see if he does play. They got the bye next week, so I don't think it would be a bad call to give him 14 days off the back of that calf strain. At the same time, Craig Bellamy doesn't seem like one of those coaches to play mind games. You're either in or you're out with him. So I do think if he plays, I like Melbourne in that one. If he doesn't, I think Manly could get the chocolates. So he's a real game swinger for me. Super Saturday, Raiders versus Roosters. Joey Manu back for the Chooks. Raiders at home, never easy as well, so they will be up for this. Sharks versus Panthers, game of the round for me outside of the Warriors versus the Finns. Sharkies playing Unreal Code. Can they go 3 on the bounce? A massive test for them against the Panthers side. Ivan Cleary, he certainly didn't mince his words in the post-game press conference. He was filthy with his boys, who outside of Jerome Luai, I thought they were all pretty underwhelming against the Wars, to be fair. So I expect them to come out with a real bee under their bonnet and show why they are the 3-time defending champs. Tough times for the Sharks, copping an angry Panthers side, but if they can get the Chockies here, then geez, they really firm as premiership contenders. Bunnies versus Para. Jack Wyden finally moves into the halves, and I think they get Parramatta here. Trent Barrett coming in as interim coach. He doesn't have a great record when he's at the helm. I think the Bunnies too, over the last couple of weeks, they've started to show a little bit of form, half decent anyway, under their interim coach. The battles of the interims. I'm backing the Bunnies here, Latrell and co, to be too good, and interested to see how Jack goes at 6, Cody Walker at 7, because I truly do think that's the best play for them moving forward. Then your Super Sunday, what a day it's going to be. Broncos versus Titans, the battle of Brizzy. Walshy's back for the Bronx. Titans, they've been pretty impressive over the last 4 weeks. I don't think they've lost a game by more than 4 points, and they've pulled off a few upsets over Brisbane in the past, so this will be a big game, a lot of emotions too, so looking forward to that clash. And then the game of the week, of course, Sunday Arvo. Shit, is it good to be back at Mount Smart. Haven't had a home game since that Manly Golden Point. It seems like an eternity. Of course, last week at Magic Round counted as a home game for the Wars, but it was in Brizzy, so it doesn't really count. All it does is give us a bit more money as we get a cut of the ticket sales as the home side. So you love that for the bank account, but she's not great for the faithful that couldn't travel. So this week we get back home. Looking forward to this one, taking on the Dolphins in what is going to be a huge game. 3 big inclusions for us. Some strong performers missing out from last week too, but that's the tough decisions you've got to make when your squad is as deep as the Mariana Trench. 6:05 kickoff, so the sun will be going down a bit later than what we're used to on our Sunday Arvo games as well. For the Finns, they get some big ins back in as well. Jared Wallace and Maxi Plath both recovered, and they will be ready to rip in. Plath in particular, he's been really impressive for me, and he'll add some starch to that full pack in the 13 jersey. Of course, the Hammer, he's back firing at all cylinders now. He's always a rugby league league handful, as are guys like Jermaine Isako, Herbie Farnworth, Young Katoa's been pulling the strings well, Jeremy Marshall-King, the Bromwich brothers, Marky Nichols, speaking of props that love scoring tries, Felice Kafusi, old Finn Diesel, rocking that hissing mullet out the back too. That should be a criminal offence. So they're a strong side, the Finns, playing some good code. At the same time though, I think their position on the ladder is a little bit false. They've had a pretty good run, lots of home games against teams ranked lower than them on the ladder too. In fact, only 2 of their 16 wins in the NRL so far have come outside of Queensland. They love playing at home, they don't love travelling. So I think we get them here. For our team, of course, Tane remains at the back, Dallin and Mars on the wings, with Adam Pompey in the centres, and then he gets joined by Rocco Berry, who's made a lightning quick recovery from that fractured hand. Wouldn't be surprised if that's a few mind games there from Webby and perhaps he doesn't play. This is just me going off the cuff. If he has recovered though, fizz to have Rocco back. Old bootlaces Berry. Shit, does he shore up our defence? And with Ali being out for a couple months, I think it's going to be, then this is a very timely return. Then in the halves, we get Chance and Tamaide, that winning combo from last week. Forward pack, Adden and Bunty in the props. Got to say, shout out to Bunty as well. I think he made 30 tackles for none missed last week. Really ripped in defensively. Freddie Lussick comes back in the 9 jersey. He's recovered from brain cell depletion and he gets the nod to start. Jackson Ford, Mitchie Barnett and Dylan Walker round out the forward pack. And shout out to Mitch. He's been named as skipper too. Well in the sniff for Origin. His leadership has really stood up a notch this year. When Mitch talks, people listen. He's an enforcer, the ultimate competitor. And I'm keen to see how he goes with that captain armband on. Then on the bench, we've gone big. Webby's gone for bulk with Tommy Ale, Jazz Tavanga, Jacob Laban and Marata Niokore. Great to have Marata back. Brings us massive punch off the bench. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe he comes into the second row. Then you could push Barney back into prop as we start. At the same time though, Marata low on minutes, low on game time, low on fitness. So I think bringing him in off the bench is the smarter decision. Then on the extended remove, tough scenes with Paulie Roach. Outstanding last week, but he's named in the 18 jersey. Chanel Harris-Tavita, welcome back, son. He's recovered from that baby cow strain to take up the 20 jersey. Zion Egkosi and Moala Graham Tulfa round out the squad. Interesting to see his inclusion because he could be someone that comes in place of Rocco if he's ruled out. For me though, I think this bench screams for a late change, whether that's Paulie Roach to come in as a genuine 14 option. We've got 3 props in a second row on the bench at the moment, or whether that's Chanel who comes in as well for a bit more cover. Say if Rocco was to go down, you could then push Chance out to the centres, Chanel into the halves, and we don't lose too much strike there. So I think there is a bit of room to work here for Webby. At the same time, if this is the way we run out, then I'll be well and truly backing the boys to get the job done. If you're planning on heading along on the weekend, I think only about 1,500 tickets left on sale, and that was yesterday when I was told that too. So she's going to be a sellout. Everyone's back on board the bandwagon. All those losers commenting that we have more wins than jerseys and all that type of shit narrative that they were chucking up last week, that's all been forgotten now after that win against the Panthers. So get on board the hype train, and if you're a faithful that supports the lads week in and week out regardless of the results, then I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Go Media Stadium. Up the mighty Wars, baby. We win in a tight one here. Bank the bye next week. Then we welcome back guys like SJ, Curdy Capes and co. Absolute scenes. That's when we launch our assault on the competition. How good is rugby league? Super Rugby, and fair to say I didn't actually watch many of the games last weekend, so I'll keep this one short and sharp. Was well and truly entrenched in the world of rugby league. The Canes B, they got a tight win over Moana Pacifica, who had targeted that game, rested bodies against the Chiefs in order to throw everything at the Swills, and they certainly did just that, put up a spirited performance, but still the Canes, just too much depth in that squad, and they came away with the W. Chiefs, they won by a bee's dick against the Rebels over in Melbourne, a great win for them. Damian McKenzie's goal kicking proving to be the difference there. The Rebels kicker missed a couple off the rubber, and no doubt he's been having sleepless nights off the back of that. They really need to bank these wins because they're still in danger of dropping out of the top 8, which would be crazy to think considering they were sitting in 4th just a few weeks ago. The Drua, they're a team that didn't hurt their finals chances at all. A big home win against the Reds to keep them in the hunt. The Brumbies bet the Crusaders as predicted. Tight tussle, but it was in Canberra, so we knew the Brums were going to get the chockies there. And then the Blues, they humped the Landers way too strong at the Garden of Eden despite missing a few bodies there. Shout out to Kay Banks, good harbour lad from Mahurangi, who got his debut too. The kid is an absolute weapon. And then the Force, they bet the Tars to continue their resurgence and keep their playoff hopes alive too. Great to see Kurtley Beale still out there running amok at his ripe old age. So on to this week we go, round 14, second to last week this week, and there's some great games that are about to be dished up. Of course, Friday night, two of the best actually, and both have big ramifications in terms of the ladder as well. You have the Chiefs taking on the Canes, fourth taking on second in Hamilton. Only a few thousand tickets left for this game too, I believe. So if you are a Mulu faithful, then make sure you head along to this one and snap those up quick, smart. Both teams, no doubt, rolling out their Rolls Royce, recording this before team naming on your Wednesday Arvo 4 p.m, but I'm expecting both to be at full strength or as close to full strength as they can be. This is going to be a heck of a game. It's always tight whenever there's New Zealand derbies, but the Chiefs in particular, they're going to want to prove a point. They've been beating up on the lower ranked teams, but so far they probably haven't knocked off one of those big names. So in the next 2 weeks, they got the Canes and the Blues. This is a chance for them to make a statement and really pick up some momentum, claim some big scalps before we get into playoff footy. Then you got the Brumbies up against the Rebels. Like I touched on before, Rebels, they need this one. Sitting in 6th, but just a win ahead of the Drua in 8th. They're not really in much danger of dropping out, but at the same time, if the Force can keep picking up wins and the Rebels pick up L's, then they could miss as well. An Australian derby, it is in Canberra though, so I'll be backing the Brums to be too good. And if the Chiefs can beat the Canes and the Brumbies get the win, they will shoot up to second, which leaves a scary prospect of having to travel to Canberra in a semi-final. That would not be great for the New Zealand sides in the mix. Super Saturday, Moana versus the Tars. I'm going to back Moana to get the win there. Why not? 11th versus 12th. Loser probably picks up the wooden spoon. If you remember two of my preseason predictions, I had the Tars winning the spoon and coming last at $11. So hopefully that comes in for me. Satyrs versus the Blues. Huge game. Despite how the Satyrs are tracking, sitting in 10th, 2 wins from 12 games, they're also a wooden spoon contender. But despite of recent results and their form from this year, anytime the Crusaders take on the Blues, you know it's going to be a doozy of a game. At home in Christchurch too. There's plenty of pride to be played for the lads in the red and black. So I'm expecting this one to be a tight game. Blues though, form side of the competition at the moment. 11 wins from 12 games, just the one loss. Points for and against, 243 on the positive. They don't leak points easily. So no doubt Vern Cotter will have his boys up for this one. This contest always has some extra sting in it. So that should be a great watch on your Saturday night. Reds versus Force, who gives a fuck? But I'll be backing the Reds there to end the Force's winning streak and probably end their season. And then Sunday Arvo, great to see it back. Sunday afternoon footy. Not so sure why Super Rugby has barely done that this season. I think it's a great viewing slot. But Landers versus the Drua, 7th versus 8th. Both teams hungry to get dubs. The Drua, they'll finish their season next week back in Fiji, so you'd probably tip them to win that one. Landers, they're really going to want to bounce back after a disappointing shift against the Blues last weekend. They'll finish their season next weekend in Wellington against the Canes too. So this is much win territory for them in the Sistema lunchbox. Like I said before, plenty of teams with season on the line, so it should make for a bloody good round. In terms of your big news out of Super Rugby too, Bodie Barrett back in Blues colours, back at training. That broke the internet when that picture got dropped on Tuesday. I believe the Blues have applied for a dispensation, or at least inquired around whether they would be available to play Bodie for the rest of the season. My understanding is April 1st. If you're still playing overseas at that time, then you're not eligible for finals in Super Rugby, so I don't see this being a possibility. At the same time too, the Blues have been going so well without him. Perifeta, he was going great guns till he got injured. Harry Plummer, the old tradie, playing his best code of his career. It would be a bit harsh if Bodes came back in, stole the limelight, but at the same time, I'm sure the Blues would fall over at their feet to have him. In saying that, do see Artie's back in the Canes camp as well, and I actually think if the Blues were allowed to get Bodie back and the Canes were allowed to get Artie back, that it would be much more beneficial for the Canes than it would the Blues. So I actually think they're better off not opening up this can of worms. Don't even inquire, squash it, move on. 2025, both of those players will be back, because I think having Artie back in the mixer for the Swirls would make them almost an unbeatable force, which is not what they will want. And then the big news from last week, just cover it quickly before we wrap up your Super Rugby. Sammy Cane, of course, calling it a day on his All Blacks captaincy and his NZ Rugby career, signed with Japan from next year with the team he was playing for this year, has opened the door up, left it open to still play in this series coming up, and it'll be interesting to see if Razor gives him a bit of a swan song in the All Blacks games this year. At the same time though, we're so stacked for loose forwards, you almost make your own bed when you say I'm not coming back, but I'd still love to play, because if you're thinking long term and for the future, you're probably better off investing in the youth, guys like Peter Lakai, Dalton Papali'i and co, and establishing them in the All Blacks environment. Same time, Sam Cane, heck of a skipper, heck of a player, heck of a leader. That Ireland game for me in the World Cup, he stood up massively despite all the shit that he was copping, and I'd love to see him get one last final swan song, because I do think he deserves that. Will he get it? Not too sure under Razor, but let's watch this space. But well done to Sam Cane, heck of an All Black, heck of a player, seems like a great bloke too. Deserves his time into Japan to ride off into the sunset, making plenty of big bucks. So shout out to you, Sammy, one of the great New Zealanders, and a skipper that I'm sure we will remember for a very long time. Weekly wrap, NBA, holy struth, the defending champs, the Denver Nuggets, are gone at the hands of the Minnesota T-Wolves. Massive win for them. They got the job done, even in Denver for Game 7. It looked like momentum had shifted well and truly. T-Wolves picked up the first two. People were talking a sweep. There was about a 3 or 4 day layoff. Denver came back refreshed, fresh game plan, and they flipped the momentum massively. Went up 3-2. Everyone was then saying Denver get it done, but then T-Wolves, bang, bang, and on they advance. Anthony Edwards, what a freak. Jaden McDaniels certainly showed up too. Cat, Rudy Gobert, a full team effort. So well done to them. They deserved it. And I was happy to see them get the dub. I jumped on the bandwagon for that series. Wanted Denver gone. The Joker, he's a pleasure to watch. Jamal Murray, he's a gun too. But good to see something a bit different in this young T-Wolves side advancing on in the West. It was bye-bye Knicks too. The big minutes that Coach Tibbs was putting them through really took a toll on their body. Brunson and Hart injured in Game 7. Pacers too good, and on they advance. If you said at the start of the NBA season that the Pacers would be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals, I would have laughed in your face. What a season it was for them. Mavs too good for the Thunder. Sad to see the Thunder bow out, but at the same time, cool to see Luka and Kyrie advance, forming a great duo there, and they're going to be a pretty difficult team to beat and form a really interesting series for the T-Wolves, which goes down today. I do wonder if Minnesota will be too big for them to handle, but interested to see how it plays out. And then, of course, in the East, we had Game 1 of the finals yesterday. I do see the Celtics getting the job done. 4-2, maybe 4-1 if they really get on a roll, and I'd be surprised to not see Boston advance from that. Early predictions, I'm going Boston versus the T-Wolves for your NBA Finals. Massive scenes there. The Wellington Phoenix, sad to see them bow out. Of course, Melbourne victory, got the victory. They advanced to their 7th finals in extra time too. Rough way for the season to come to an end in such a disappointing fashion. Sold out at the Cake Tin. I know a few Phoenix frothers that threw down from Auckland as well, which was a massive lift from them. They had their chances to win, just didn't execute. execute. Overall, heads held high though. A great season for the Phoenix. Massive success, some big box ticks for them. And no doubt they'll be looking to come back even better. I'm sure that result really does have them stinging though. Disappointing scenes. And then finally, Fury versus Usyk on your Sunday morning. What a great scrap that was. Shout out to Usyk, who unified the belts, an absolute weapon. Dropped Fury, had him on the ropes there, but this was one of the great heavyweight biffs that I've ever seen. Both lads just throwing hands. The old fanfare before the fight took about 20 minutes, but shit, did it live up to the hype. A great scrap, and I can't wait for the rematch if that does go down. Fury's talking about October, so I'll have bums on seats for that one. It'll be one of the great watches. Punting chat time now. 7 from 8 in the NRL last week and had some great wins across all codes. Of course, there was no pod last week, so you wouldn't have been riding home those wins with me. But this week, I'll be giving out tips aplenty so you can get bums on seats and hopefully green ticks on your bet slips, courtesy of the TAB. Tonight, we've got the Doggies taking on the Dragons. Dogs, $1.52 favourites at home up against the Dargons, paying $2.45. The Dogs have won 7 of their last 9 games against the Dragons at Accor, and Joshi Adokar, he scored 22 tries in 24 games at that venue. Dragons, fresh off the back of a bye, and I think they'll be up for this one. Dogs, though, they'll be stinging after a disappointing shift at Magic Round. So I'm going the Dogs in a close one and Fox to score, as the stats suggest, for a nice little same-game multi there. Wouldn't be opposed to you taking the Dragons on an alternative line as well, because I think they'll make a real arm wrestle out of this one. Friday night, Cowboys taking on the Tigers. Cows, massive favourites here for a team that's been pretty underwhelming, and they have a pretty dusty record at Queensland Country Bank Stadium as of late too. They're paying $1.25. Benji's lads playing $4. The Cows have only won 2 of their last 6 games at this venue, but the Tigers, they've only won 2 of their past 12 at Queensland venues, so they hate crossing the border, prefer to play more in New South Wales. Cowboys winger Murray Taulagi, he scored 7 tries in his last 5 games against the Tigers, so he's a good sniff. Cowboys into Taulagi will get you a couple bucks there, so not a bad bet for that one. Then a doozy of a game after that. Manly at home taking on the Storm. Manly paying $2.25. The Storm paying $1.65. And interestingly enough, Manly, they've actually beaten the Storm in their last 2 games at Brookvale. The Storm, though, they've won 3 in a row away from Melbourne, so they're strong when travelling. And like I touched on before earlier in the pod, for me, the result of this game really does rely on if Jerome Hughes is available to play. If Hughes is in, chuck him in. I like them to get the dub. If he's out, though, Manly real value here. And Ruben Garrick, he scored 5 tries in his last 4 games in great try-scoring form, and I'd back him to score a meaty in this clash too. So stay tuned closer to kickoff. Once those final teams are locked in, you get a good indication as to where you should go there. Super Saturday, Raiders $3.80 at home taking on the Chooks, $1.28. Raiders have won 6 of their last 8 games against the Roosters at GIO Stadium in Canberra, so a strong home ground advantage for Ricky's lads over the Roosters there. The Roosters, though, they've averaged 42 points per game over the last month. Their attack has been firing, scoring plenty of points, and I don't think the Raiders have that many in them if the Chooks are to turn it on attack. Dommy Young, he scored 6 tries in his last 4 games, a big body. Like I said before, saw him at breakfast. Shit, is he tall. Bloody hard to stop too when he's at top speed, so back him in. I'm going Roosters in a tight one. Dommy to score for a bit of value early doors. Sharkies $1.65. Panthers $2.25 in what is going to be a heck of a clash. The Sharks, they've won 6 of their last 7 games at home, and the Panthers actually haven't won in Cronulla since 2012, which probably has to be their longest active losing streak, because over the last 3 or 4 years, they've been knocking off everyone. So slightly worrying signs there for the Panthers. In saying that, the Panthers have won 6 of their last 7 games against the Sharks. So recent head-to-head form suggests that they are great value here as the underdogs at $2.25. Tommy Hazelton, he scored 4 tries in his last 5 games and continues to dish up some great jam, as does Kale Iro, who I think is a rugby league handful out wide. Panthers, though, they're real value here for me. Surely they don't lose twice. If you wanted to play it safer, though, tease them to alternative line around +6.5, and that should be an easy tick for your Magic Multis. Then to round out your Saturday, we've got the Bunnies taking on Para. Odds are split, $1.90 each. The bookies can't separate them. Bunnies, they've won 6 of their last 7 against the Eels, and the Eels haven't beaten the Rabbitohs at a core since 2017. I like South Sydney here to bounce back and get a much-needed win for them and continue to pile on the hurt for Parramatta. AJ, he scored 9 tries in his last 4 games against the Eels, and he is back for this clash too. So for a little same-game claim here, remember, 3+ legs, misses by 1, you'll get your money back as bonus cash up to $50. I'm going Bunnies head-to-head into Jack Whiten and AJ both to score, so jump on board that. Super Sunday, double-header to round us out. Broncos versus Titans. Broncos $1.22 favourites at Suncorp. Titans paying $4.50. Bronx have won 4 of their last 5 games against the Titans, and they've also won 7 of their last 8 games at Suncorp. Titans winger Cam Pereira, he scored 7 tries in his last 4 games, and Dean Mariner for the Bronx, he scored 14 in his last 13. So for me, I'm going the Broncos to win. And then for your try scorers, I like that duos market of Mariner and Walshy to combine for 2+ tries. That's paying $1.72. Chuck the Bronx on to get the win as well, and that is a great bet. And then finally, Warriors taking on the Finns, $1.90 both teams. The bookies can't separate them, which to me just isn't the right way to look at this. The Warriors have only won 1 of our last 4 games at home, so we're desperate to get a win at Mount Smart to turn her back into the fortress that it was last year. As I touched earlier, the Dolphins, they've only had 2 of their 16 wins outside of Queensland. They love playing over in Aussie, don't like going out of that state into New South Wales, and they certainly don't like going across the ditch. Adam Fanua-Blake, he scored 5 tries in his last 6 home games. The Hammer, he scored 7 tries in his last 5 games, and the Warriors, we've won 3 of our last 5 games against top 8 opponents. We rise to the occasion. Last week was a huge occasion and a season-turning win. We get the dub here. Good value for us, 1-12 too, but if you want to play it safer, head-to-head at $1.90. Juicy odds, so snap that up. For your rugby league multis as well, I've got 2 here for you to jump on. First one paying $5.23, and that's Panthers and Manly, both on alternative starts of +13.5. Mix that up with the Warriors and the Dogs head to head, and you'll get $5.23 for that, which I think is massive odds. Then I've got the Warriors 1-12 into the Bunnies on the point start -2.5. Mariner and Walsh on that duos, 2+ tries combined. Chuck those 3 together, $20.77 if you're after something a little more leery for your NRL action. Then on your Super Rugby, some good games here too, some that are pretty tough to make a call on, to be fair. Chiefs, they go on $1.60 favourites over the Canes at $2.25. I'm thinking the Chiefs in a really tight one, but I actually like the try bet option here of either team to win by 7.5 points. Basically, you're just hoping that it is a tight contest within 7 each way. $2.50, I think it's going to be just that, so that is good money there. Brumbies versus the Rebels. Brumbies clear favourites, $1.15. Rebels $5. The $5 is probably a little disrespectful. At the same time, Canberra, bloody hard place to go and get the dub, so I'll be backing the Brums here. Crusaders $2.80. Outsiders against the Blues $1.40. I like the Blues here, and I like them 1-12 as well. Reds, they'll beat the Force for me, and the Landers up against the Drua. $1.37 the Landers are favourites. Of course, this one in the Sistema lunchbox, so you're just backing the home side. Don't mind the Drua on an alternative line though, and saying that, they could just be holding out here, get back home, big performance next week, and they get the dub to round out their season. So bet on that one with caution. For my multi for your Super Rugby, going either team by 7.5 points in that Chiefs-Canes game, the try bet, into the Blues head-to-head and the Brumbies head-to-head, $3.70. Not bad odds there at all. Then for your Magic Multis in your Bet of the Week, 9 from 13 in these this year. This week she's straight up too easy. Warriors head to head, $1.90. Scoff that up back at Mount Smart in front of a sold out Fortress. The lads are going to turn it on and re-cement 2 from 2 on the trot into the bye. Absolute scenes. Then your Magic Multi, little Ivan Leary here chasing something at bigger odds. Blues 1 to 12, Warriors 1 to 12, and that try bet in the Chiefs Canes will get you $22.11 of the best. Love that. Then for your series betting in the NBA as well, to round that out, like I said, Boston into T-Wolves. I think that is going to be the final, so multi those up and you should get a nice little return as well. So shout out to the TAB, Surly's boosted option coming on Sunday for your game day, so stay tuned for that one and check out all their promos available on the Punters Lounge. Really appreciate their support. So that's us for another pod. Huge weekend of sport up ahead and a great weekend as well for the Mighty Coat. Taking on Takapuna in what should be a heck of a clash down at Oniwa Domain if you live in local and looking for something to do on your Saturday afternoon. Playing for the Les Pears Shield as well, which is basically the Ramfurly Shield of North Harbour Club Rugby. Taka hold it at the moment, so we're looking to go down there and raid their trophy cabinet. She's going to be a tight one. Great rivalry between these two sides, so it should be bums on seats action. Sunday Arvo Warriors, that should be grouse, and then some great games in your Super Code. Tomorrow night, that Chiefs vs Canes looks to be a real lip licker, as does Crusaders vs Blues. Huge rivalry there, so plenty to tuck the teeth into. I'll catch you back here, same time, same place next week. Voice should be sounding better after Magic Round. She was a bit of a push today, but we got there in the end. So catch you soon, go well, and up the mighty Wars.